Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. If you get the feeling that amiable guy up on screen delivering the news in the person of John Holt seems natural and regular, then you are absolutely right, because all you have to do is have a natural and regular conversation with him away from the television screen, and you'll find the same guy. Born and raised in Great Bend, Kansas, he moved on to the University of Kansas, as did just about everybody else in his family, and from there had stops in Topeka, Wichita, and then eventually in 1994 he came to Kansas City, and he's been here ever since, bringing reporting, anchoring, and his general friendly persona to the television screen for those last 25 years or so at Fox 4. He has covered everything from the O.J. Simpson murder trial to Super Bowls to World Series to Final Fours, and all along the way, doing it with integrity and a smile. It has been my pleasure through the years to be a great acquaintance of John Holt, and it is a distinct pleasure to have him as a subject on Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing today. His is a great story, well told. He's a lot of fun, there's a lot of laughs, and it comes your way next. We're here with Joe Spiker, the CEO and president of Easton Roofing. What's the difference at this time of year as we head toward the warmer months for homeowners, and what should they be looking at, coronavirus or not?
If you didn't do a good job of home maintenance in the fall, cleaning your gutters out, when we get the spring rains, that can be a real problem. So you want to make sure that you've done a good job on your home maintenance, cleaning your gutters out. We can help with that. I always tell people they never get their roof inspected. They get their furnace inspected once a year, but they never get their roof inspected. And we do the inspection on your roof for free. So you call, you make an appointment, and we'll show up, do the inspection. It's free. You should have your roof looked at once a year. Take advantage of us. And most likely you're fine. And if there's a problem, hopefully we can get out in front of it and save you money in the end.
So for any needs that people have right now, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, you can always call us, 913-257-5426. But the best way is to go to eastonroofing.com, put your information in, and we'll give you a call.
Easton Roofing. Integrity matters. It's time now to get some great assistance on healthcare with Chad Beisel from no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com. And Chad, even your business's name would indicate that you have a real aggressive way and an important way to go after some health insurance for your clients.
What I've found out in the industry is just a lot of people are really confused. They don't know what plans are good, what their plans offer, how they cover. And so I've just taken the approach of being really educated on what options are available to clients and showing them all the options that are available and making sure they understand them so they can pick and choose what options are good for them.
And one thing that's really important, of course, is access to doctors and hospitals.
Absolutely. That's becoming a big issue for a lot of people. Some of the plans out there are going to restrict those clients to where they can and cannot go. So if you live just outside the Kansas City metro, some of the counties outside, you may not be able to go to some of the hospitals up here in the Kansas City area. So making sure that you have a plan that's got doctors and hospitals and places you want to go is really, really important today.
Learn more by visiting no-nonsense-healthcareninja.com and let Chad help you. Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. I'm here with Tim Emerson, the owner of Emerson & Company. And Tim, give us an idea of the range of services that you provide from Emerson & Company.
At Emerson & Company, we do credit card processing, payroll services. We do bookkeeping, merchant accounts like point-of-sale systems.
What would you say differentiates you from other companies in the field, and what makes you special?
I think what makes us unique is that we're a small local business making regional decisions on companies. We create a profile for the business and then put it out to our different vendors in a very competitive environment and tailor those needs to the specific business, which usually ends up in a great fit or great result for the company.
And, of course, the idea is to save money, right?
Save money, and actually sometimes I'm surprised where actually a solution that may cost a little bit more ultimately does save money, but we're not conditioned to think like that sometimes.
Emerson and Company. Check them out at emerson-co.com or call them at 816-360-9092.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
John, you grew up in Great Bend, Kansas, and had 4 siblings. What was life like for little John Holt?
You know what, Danny? I really grew up in, I hate to use the term because sometimes I think it gets overused, but in a bucolic Midwestern small town of about 18,000. It was a great place to grow up. I kind of outgrew it and didn't feel compelled to go back. But life in Great Bend was simple. The 5 brothers and sisters. My dad was a physician out there. He had settled out there because he was not a big city guy. He'd been in Kansas City for med school at KU Med and then Wichita for his residency, and both of those were way too big for him. He wanted to be back in a small town. He grew up in Southwest Kansas, married his high school sweetheart. And so we ended up in Great Bend, and 24 years he was there practicing medicine, and I started first grade at St. Patrick's and grew up in just a wonderful Catholic community, and then went to the junior high and high school there, and just a great upbringing. We dragged Main Street. That was kind of what we did when we were able to drive and turn around at the A&W root beer stand and go back the other way and see what cute high school girls we could wave at, and just a terrific, lots of close friends. Some I still keep in touch with. It's just a very close-knit Midwestern small Kansas town, right smack dab in the middle of the state.
What did you do to fill up your time when you were a young guy?
Well, sports, of course. We played baseball starting in the t-ball in the 3rd grade, baseball in the 4th grade, and that graduated as I got older into slow pitch softball. I should, as an aside, explain that I'm not very athletic. So my junior high and high school sports experience was mostly intramurals. I found that my calling was of the voice variety. I got into the speech classes in junior high and fell in love with talking. As anybody will attest to, I can talk your ear off. You know that. But then in high school, I got involved in debate and forensics in the 2nd semester, and extemporaneous speaking, which is where you take a topic and you get a half hour to kind of put together a little talk, and then you go and give it extemporaneously with no notes or anything. And I fell in love with public speaking. So that's kind of what I did sort of get into the business I ultimately would end up in. But sports was fun too, though. It was really more of a social thing for me growing up. I did play some tennis and some golf, but in a small town like that was really kind of what filled up a lot of your time. And then of course odd jobs. I was a sacker at the Dillon's grocery store. Worked on a farm for a few summers. It was just a really good way to sort of learn the work ethic and make friends and network, and just an awesome growing up. No complaints.
What was your parents' relationship like, and your relationship with them?
I had a great relationship with my folks. They were, my dad was a doctor, and for a time was the only internist in his practice. He ultimately did recruit a partner, but he was gone a lot. He would come home from the hospital. We would have a quick family dinner, and often he was heading back to the hospital to see a patient, or he was on the phone a lot dealing with things. And his office hours were long, and weekends often he was in and out of the hospital taking care of folks. So I probably growing up was closer to my mom just because she did not work. She was a stay-at-home mom,
Mm-hmm.
and she's the one who taxied us to our games, to our events, to our friends. She was the one in the car I could confide in and talk to. But with my dad, it was more of a relationship of learning from him and growing. He worked his tail off. That guy worked so hard for us as a family, and he loved what he did. And so I learned really a lot from him in terms of just work ethic and passion for what you do. And it's interesting. I sort of had an early interest in medicine until I learned all the math, science, and physics you had to compile to get into med school, and decided, no, that's not for me. So, but I did grow up in a terrific family, very close to my parents. Church every Sunday, we had a close-knit group of family friends that we socialized with. And I like to say I had 2 or 3 sets of parents, and that's kind of the way it is in a small town. Everybody looks out for everybody else.
Where were you in the lineup of the Holts, the 5 Holts?
I'm the old man, Danny, the old man.
Me too.
I'm the oldest
Me too.
of the 5.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah,
Yep.
Then. And, with that, as you know, comes a little bit of responsibility, right? You're the one who's supposed to set the good example and, take care of your little brother. I had 2 brothers and 2 sisters. So we had 3 boys, 2 girls, and we were all within a couple of years of each other. So, again, a good close-knit family. I was the least athletic of the boys, so that was a bit of a challenge for me ego-wise. When you're in grade school, junior high, and high school, and your brother is lighting up the scoreboard on the football field and basketball court, and your friends are coming to you saying, why aren't you as good as Bob? Why aren't you scoring 23 points a night? Yeah, you just kind of suck it up and go, yeah, he got dad's athleticism. I got mom's brains, right? I guess, I don't know. Gift of gab.
Do you feel like there was some kind of inspiration for you having such an interest in speaking and debate and things like that?
Really, I don't know that there's any one. I do know growing up, I loved watching news. Was one of those odd kids who, when 6 o'clock rolled around, or actually 5:30 back in the day when the evening network newscasts were appointment, I wanted to just sit down and watch the news. And I would watch. We were in the Wichita TV market, ironically, a market I would ultimately end up in. So that might have been part of my inspiration. My folks weren't necessarily public speakers. My dad loathed giving presentations to medical groups. He really just wanted to practice medicine. My mom, I guess, was the talker in the family, but it really didn't come from there. It just came from an interest in news and radio. I used to listen to radio as a kid, AM radio, and listening to the Royals. We grew up out in Royals country, listening to the sports guys on the radio. I actually sort of had a passion, and at one time I thought I might be a play-by-play guy, but life has interesting turns, and I ended up in news. But that, and then combine that with the public speaking that I had the opportunity to do in high school primarily, I just fell in love with it. And I thought, I'll never, play golf on Sundays on TV or basketball in the NBA or college, but I think I can talk for a living, and it's worked out okay, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And you'll be happy to know that my favorite television show when I was a boy was the CBS Evening News. So
yes, with Walter Cronkite,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So we're kindred spirits in that regard. How about high school life? What was that like in grade? Because 18,000 isn't that small a town for Kansas.
No, it's not. And back then it was kind of one of the bigger towns out in that part of the world. Our big city was Wichita. That way you could go to the mall in Wichita. We didn't have a mall. But high school was fun. We had one high school there. So everybody went to the one high school. We had 2 junior highs, and everybody kind of fed in. So you got exposed to the other kids from the other junior high when you got to high school. But I had a core group of great friends, and we in addition to obviously the classes, the speech and debate, we had a group of friends who socialized and got together. We'd pick up games or get together on the weekends. Back then you didn't text or get on social media, obviously. So you had to pick up the phone and call or make plans to meet somewhere. And in a town like that, you can hop on your bike and ride just pretty much anywhere. Right. So that's how we would do it, especially in the summer. We had intramural or recreational league teams in the summer, and that was a big part of our social life. So it was great. I really enjoyed it. And it just, you didn't know everybody in school, but you sure knew what they looked like, and you give them a wave. And we had no tension or anything like that back then. It was, everybody did their own thing, but you had your group of friends you kind of hung out with, and it was just a great, like I said, just a great town to grow up in. It was a lot of fun.
When it was coming time to go to college, I know all of the Holts ended up at being KU people, and you're a third generation, I guess, KU family. So was there ever any thought that you were going to do anything but go to KU?
It's funny. Not really. I mean, the reason I guess we were exposed to KU was we would pick a game a year to come up to for football, and we had some family friends in Lawrence we would stay with. My dad's a med school classmate and fraternity brother. We became close with their family, so I was familiar with Lawrence. I will say, and I don't tell many people this, so I guess I'm going to put this out there. I actually became familiar with the University of Missouri because of its School of Journalism, and toyed with the idea of looking into that. But not enough to ever apply. And so I was KU bound because some of my high school friends were going there. I was accepted into a fraternity there, and it just seemed right for me, and no regrets looking back. It was a pretty good college experience too.
What span of time were you in college at KU?
So I graduated from high school in 77,
right.
and then in college 81. So 77 to 81, I was on the 4-year plan until I decided I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up, and stayed for 3 years of law school in Lawrence. So I tell people I was on the 7-year plan, and that, people you chuckle at that, but it was for a purpose and 2 degrees, and loved Lawrence. I wasn't quite ready I had some opportunities to go out and work in television. I was already working part-time at the WIBW in Topeka, and they offered me a full-time job coming out of college. But at the end of the day, I wanted to get my law degree, and that worked out fine. I ended up at WIBW anyway.
So you go to law school and you do get a law degree, and did you ever really think you were going to be a lawyer, or was it just something you wanted to do to expand your horizons?
Both, actually. My initial thought was I wanted to expand my horizons, and I think you are familiar with a Kansan by the name of Bill Curtis.
Yes, of course.
From Southeast Kansas, who had worked at WIBW, and I had met a couple of times back in the day. He was long gone from there, but occasionally would come back. And he got his law degree at Washburn. He was scheduled to work in Wichita, Kansas for a law firm down there. And then that 66 tornado hit. He uttered those famous words, "For God's sake, take cover," and the rest is history. CBS connected with him. He did some reporting remotely for them. That's back in the day before correspondents parachuted in and you had satellite trucks. He was doing some initial reporting, and he got noticed by the network at an early age, and his career, of course, took off. And I thought, gosh, if a law degree could be helpful to a guy like that, maybe it could help me, give me an edge. And if not, perhaps there's a career in media law. Protecting, the defamation, libel, the constitutional law kind of questions, which always I loved in law school. Constitutional law was probably my favorite subject. So I did toy with that, worked for a summer clerked at a law firm in D.C. And at the end of the day, I just felt like my passion was actually being on the ground in journalism. And I think you understand that as somebody who's talked for a living. It gets in your blood. It's hard to walk away from. And I just didn't think the practice of law was for me. It's always been in my hip pocket, but never chose to go that route, even as I've moved along in my television and broadcast career. But I will say this, I use the degree, I use the training every day, whether it's research, analytical thinking skills, or just understanding how the court system works. It's funny, I become the newsroom lawyer. I have people come up to me when they find out I have a law degree and, "Hey, I got this traffic ticket. Can you help me get?" I'm like, no. Let me get you a real lawyer.
Right.
But no, it's not. People say, "Oh, you can always practice law," and I'm like, no, you don't. Just you truly have to be out in the field, and you don't learn it in law school. You have to be out there doing it. And at this stage of my career, I'm not just going to hang out a shingle.
What was your social life like at KU? I know you're in a fraternity, and that creates an almost instant social setting for anybody. But what was it like there then?
Yeah, it was great. I had a couple of one of my best friends, Matt Keenan, who I grew up with out in Great Bend from first grade on, and was like another brother. His parents, like parents to me, he and I ended up at the same fraternity together. So that was nice. That was fun. And the great thing about moving from a Great Bend to a Lawrence, it's not far, right? I mean, maybe 4 hours, 4 hours, but it's a world away from your experience growing up in a town in central Kansas to come up to Lawrence and immediately be on a campus with, back then, I think it was 18, a campus as big population-wise as your town, and people from all over the country and all over the world. The fraternity experience gave me a chance to be in a smaller living setting and to meet guys, most of them of like mind. Fraternities are full of different people too, in terms of what they want to accomplish. But guys from all over the country, all over Kansas. That first semester, you sort of you're the guy from the small town, so you feel a little ostracized. But man, by the end of that first year and into your second year, everybody's a friend, and it doesn't matter where they're from. You're closer to some than others, just as I was in high school, obviously, or growing up. But it was just a great way to sort of learn how to get along with people from different backgrounds, towns, experiences. And I've always been grateful for that experience. And I'm sure that's true if I'd lived in a dorm or a scholarship hall or however. I did not want to live out on my own in an apartment. I wanted to be in some kind of a group setting where I could connect and network. And I look back, and it was probably the best decision I ever made in terms of just getting my college career off to a good start.
How about dating and all that?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you come from a small town, and all of a sudden you're thrust into this world of girls from Kansas City and Wichita and even Chicago. And I don't know, it was kind of tough early on. But honestly, I got so busy with school and what I was doing. And we as a fraternity would socialize with other sororities. So we had group gatherings and parties. And I dated a few gals from some of the sororities who I met. But nobody serious really in college. I started to work at a Lawrence radio station on the first gig I ever got. You'll appreciate this. So I'd been knocking on the door there. I grew up in Great Bend. The other advantage of Great Bend was it had one small town radio station, right? And the general manager allowed some high school students, and I was one of the fortunate ones from our newspaper, high school newspaper, to do a Thursday night radio show. Panther Parade, we called it. I think it was a 15-minute, maybe a half-hour show where we could play our favorite music and do news and updates about what was happening at Great Bend High School. Well, he heard me on the air and liked my voice and wondered if I would be willing to work part-time at the radio station. So he was putting an FM station on the air. It was going to be easy listening music, and it would need newscasts recorded and weather and somebody to kind of keep the log, which is checking off that the commercials ran and so on and so forth. So I took him up on it. I was a part-time worker at KVGB in Great Bend, AM and FM. I got to read everything from farm reports. I had to learn what barrows and gilts were. And believe it or not, back in the day, we would read the hospital notes. So who was checking in and who was getting out. You can't do that anymore. That's a federal law that says you don't give that up. And obituaries and newscasts. It was just a great foot in the door experience. So when I got to Lawrence, fast forward, started knocking on the local radio station's door there. And finally, I think I wore this program director down. It's at KLWN, KLZR. Mike Schmidt, great guy. He finally called me and said, I've got a job for you. Now, I wanted to do news, but I also just wanted to get on the air and a foot in the door. He said, would you consider the graveyard shift Saturday night to Sunday morning?
Ooh.
College kid, right? Fraternity brother. So I'm thinking, yeah, I'll do it. He couldn't believe I said yes, right?
Right.
And it was a DJ gig. It was an FM station. Kind of a mix of top 40 classic rock. So I would go out with my brothers on Saturday night, drink Pepsi or Coca-Cola or whatever, and then break away and head out to the radio station about 11:30 so I could get the carts of the very few commercials running or PSAs, get my records ready, and take over for the main guy out there. And I would go from midnight to 6 a.m. And then the Sunday morning programming would kick in. Somebody else would take over. But man, that was an experience. About 3 or so in the morning, the request line would light up, and it would be some fraternity brothers. Holster, I got a cute gal with me. Can you play the Commodores? you know what, at 3 a.m, I might break program protocol to take care of a fraternity brother, and I became a hero to them. So anyway, that was my foot in the door in Lawrence, and then ultimately did get to do some news for the station. Like I said, I just wanted a foot in the door, and that's as you know, that's how you do it. You just get in and see what you can do and prove to them that you're serious about it.
Well, that's a pretty good sacrifice for a college student kicking out of Saturday nights. I remember when I was the sports director in the Syracuse market, we had a really good shift on the weekend for guys, and they'd get to do some sports talk and run games and stuff like that, and it was really a great training ground. And I couldn't get a damn Syracuse kid to make the short drive over because they wanted their Saturday nights. I mean, it was just it was really hard to do to get somebody like that. So that is a pretty good sacrifice that you did and showed that you were serious about it. I'm sure that's part of the reason they gave you the news gig eventually. So at this point in time, you would eventually go to law school, but it sounds like this is in your blood at this point.
It is, and even in law school. So part of my college career was between my junior and senior year. The internship is very important in what we do, as you know. Mm-hmm. So I was fortunate enough, and I think part of it was because I had shown the effort to get a job in Lawrence and work at a radio station. I had radio background from Great Bend, plus my School of Journalism experience there. I got a job at WIBW in Topeka, and for that first summer, between my junior and senior year, they literally, in a small market like that, they hand you a camera and they send you out and you shoot. And I was putting stories, or packages as they're called, on the air within a few weeks of starting there. So that, and again, that's just invaluable experience to be able to say, hey, look, I've already done that. And then by the end of that summer, I was filling in on a Saturday morning, a 15-minute newscast that we did, whenever the guy was gone or on vacation. And he had been an intern at the station, so he and I got to be good friends. Mike Binkley, who ultimately worked in Cincinnati and in the Twin Cities and is retired now. But so we would do that Saturday morning show. And then when I went back to school my senior year, they needed help during the week. I was a stringer on the campus for them, but I would also go over a couple of mornings and do radio. Back then, they were a radio and TV outlet. And then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, I was working as a reporter and anchor as a senior in college. And then when I went to law school, I worked that summer before law school full time. And then when I went to law school, I would work basically one day a week. If they didn't have football on Sundays, I would go over and anchor a 5:30 Sunday newscast. So when I graduated from law school, they were ready to put me to work full time. As luck would have it, my third year in law school, which is typically your easiest because you have your toughest classes out of the way, you might be down to 9 or 12 hours, their 10 o'clock anchor quit. And I got hired to do the 10 o'clock news in Topeka, Monday through Friday. So it was a primetime job, and I would go to law school in the morning, study in the afternoon, and drive over at about 5:30 and help put together the newscast and anchor it. And that was really what led me to saying, you know what, I know what I'm going to do. I'm not practicing law. This is what I want to do. So I got a huge break, but that's kind of what it takes sometimes in this business. And I figured, if I work a couple of years in Topeka and I don't like it, I can come back and rethink the law thing. But it never got out of my blood.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Firsthand, I have enjoyed the benefits of the CBD products from Canaway. My back feels better and better these days, as a major part of my routine are the pain-relieving salve and the Pure Gold oil. And recently I had the pleasure of a treatment session using the Canaway CBD in conjunction with the Microlight 830 cold laser. The non-invasive treatment session worked wonders, and I could barely tell I was even being touched. TML 830 is the first 3B cold laser to get FDA approval, and in addition, the combination treatment with CBD is patent pending. The new Smart Laser is the only hands-free cold laser in the world and is used by athletic trainers, chiropractors, MDs, physical therapists, and veterinarians everywhere. You can learn more about all the great benefits from the complete line of Canaway CBD products by contacting my friend Sherry McCants at 515-208-6312. That's 515-208-6312. 888-866-6312 to get outstanding information about Canaway. Most of us have experienced auto accidents, and it's no fun. And even less fun is trying to work on the insurance aspects afterwards and getting full value after an auto accident. I'm here with David Cowan from WreckExpert.com. And David, you have an unusual and important niche for people after an auto accident.
We have a passion to teach car wreck clients what they deserve. Getting your car repaired only fixes the damage and the paint. Getting paid for your car's loss in value is called diminished value. Chances are you've never heard of this before because most people aren't looking out for you. We help people collect thousands to tens of thousands of dollars for their car's loss in value after the wreck.
And if somebody wants to come to you for that, what's the original assessment cost them?
We offer a free review of any insurance claim to see how we can help.
You can't beat that. Great expertise and assistance in getting full value after an auto accident from David Cowan. Visit WreckExpert.com and learn more.
Hi, everybody. This is Matt Llewellyn from 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence. I just want to thank everybody for supporting local restaurants during this time of uncertainty. 23rd Street Brewery is now open until this pandemic is over. And right now, more than anything, local restaurants need your help and support. Come on out and see us. 23rd Street Brewery is open now from 11:30 till 9 o'clock for dine-in and carry-out. Whatever we can do to help you out, maybe with your catering needs, too. I appreciate all the support, and thank you for continuing to shop local.
Let's spend a minute with Dr. Brad Woodle, who, along with his wife, Dr. Christina Woodle, the owners of Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, my home for chiropractic care. And first of all, just tell us about the wide range of services you offer.
Danny, we offer comprehensive chiropractic, acupuncture, physiotherapy, and rehab. We do a very thorough examination, x-rays on site as necessary, and we have a full rehabilitation department, so we can help out with exercises, stretches, different therapies for the complex, but also the very simple conditions we treat.
You have been deemed essential and have remained open all through this COVID-19 process. What are some of the things you've done to make sure that was the case?
From the very beginning, in March, we started to make sure that we were cleaning and sanitizing with EPA-registered sanitizing products. We also implemented masks way before the state required them. We implemented a parking lot waiting room, took out half of the chairs in our waiting room, and made sure to space out visits so we could appropriately meet, discuss, and also screen patients to make sure we were taking care of healthy people.
Find out more about Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture and how they can help you at asfca.com. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is John Holt. He's been a Kansas City institution and friendly face for a long, long time at Fox 4 News and does a variety of things there. Obviously, you see him on anchoring all kinds of things, but also investigative reporting and things of that nature. So you get off the kind of perfect start to your career. You're doing primetime anchoring, and you said you'd try a couple of years in Topeka, and you really only have made a couple of stops in your entire career, which is pretty cool in television.
Yeah. It is, and it's funny because, by the way, I guess I should step back. The best thing about law school for me is I met my wife there. Okay, she was a graduate of the University of Arizona, but a Topeka girl, and so she had come back to law school. We started dating. I think our first date was I had to do a live shot on New Year's Eve for the TV station, and I invited her to go with me, and she went with me. I didn't have a drop to drink until we did our last hit, and she was very nice to let me go do the hits and the cuttings. We were carrying the dropping of the ball in Topeka that year, and so I thought, this is a keeper. If she'll put up with me doing this. So Susie and I got through law school together and got married the year that we graduated, 1984. Both of us passed our bar exam, and she practiced briefly. But the thing about Topeka was Bill Curtis had been at that station, so it all had kind of come full circle. And I thought, from here, we'll go from here to another market. And I sent tapes to Dallas, St. Louis, Denver, Kansas City. Of course, I was knocking on doors like crazy in Kansas City. And lo and behold, a friend had gone down to Wichita, and she said, my news director wants to see your tape. So ironically, I ended up 3 hours down the Turnpike in Wichita. I wanted to report. I'd been anchoring in Topeka. I thought maybe a quicker route to the Dallas and the Denvers of the world would be reporting. So I went down as a night beat reporter, and then within a year was anchoring in Wichita too. And that's where, I spent 7 years there in the town I had watched growing up, working even with a couple of the guys I had watched growing up, which was a kick for me. They were sort of wrapping up their careers, but it was fun to be around them and to work with them. And so, 7 years in Wichita. Our 2 kids were born down there, and then I had a chance to come to Kansas City finally, and we jumped at that. Although we really enjoyed our time in Wichita. I guess you think you won't stay a place long, and then 7 years later you blink and you're still there. And we had a lot of good friends. A lot of my KU buddies were down there. My family was close. And then, lo and behold, we end up in Kansas City. So I like to tell people I helped pave the Kansas Turnpike in my career.
What were the circumstances of you finally getting to Kansas City?
That's actually a great story. What happened was, and again, I had been knocking on doors here. I had stopped by Channel 5, and I think I had knocked on this door here, and Brian Bracco was the news director for a long time at Channel 9. I had been in to see him. He was a KU guy, and he was very gracious in letting young people come in, and he would, and almost, I thought, someday I'm going to work for him. And then there was a news director at Channel 41 who I had connected with as well at the time. But what happened was, Channel 4 used to be an NBC affiliate, long time.
Right.
For years, Action 4 News. I watched, Phil Witt, Frank Bowl, and all those guys when I was at KU, and so Kansas City was definitely a target. So I guess I had been in Wichita for 7 years. This would have been 93, I think. I came up for, was it the Big 12 tournament then, or was it still Big 8?
Big 8 in 93 it would be.
Okay, so Big 8 tournament. We had a group of guys who we'd gotten together every year for the Big 8 tournament. I said, well, doggone it, if I'm going to be up there, I'm going to knock on the door and drop off a tape. So I called the news director, Mike McDonald, and I knew that they were switching to Fox, that the news had broken, but it was still going to be like almost a year later, maybe 9 months. And he was, what do you need to see me for? And I said, I just want to say hi. I'll shake your hand and get out of your way. I just want to draw. So he was gracious. He said, all right, come in. I'll meet you in the lobby. So I get there. I walk in. This is on my first day in Kansas City to get ready to party with the boys and go to games. He says, well, things have changed. Do you have some time? Can you stick around? And I said, yes, sir. I mean, right. I can skip that afternoon beer on the plaza. And so long story short, they had accelerated the move, the switch. It was going to happen very, very soon. It's going to happen within a few months instead of a year. And they needed to hire a lot of people fast. And so I stayed that day. He had meetings to go to about the switch. I stayed that day and met our assistant news director and spent some time with him and some others. The GM, general manager, Ed Piet, great guy at the time, has since moved on, but he couldn't meet with me, so they asked me to drive back up a couple weeks later to meet him. And one thing led to another. I was in, and I'll tell you, Danny, when they hired me, they weren't sure what they were going to do with me. Things were happening so quickly. They were juggling so many different scenarios on what they were going to do that I knew I would get at least a weekend anchor opportunity and some reporting, and that's how it ended up. I ended up anchoring weekend mornings and reporting. And then, of course, we can talk about the O.J. Simpson trial and what happened with that. But long story short, that's how I got in. I'd like to joke I snuck in the back door, and here I am 25 years later.
And that is an unbelievable run. When you're from here, you work in Topeka, you work in Wichita, now you work at Kansas City where you always wanted to work. Did you feel like 25 years later you would be in Kansas City, or did you have other designs?
Back then, I still believed in my heart that I could go bigger, whether it was Chicago, New York, Dallas. But at the end of the day, and we had young children, and they started school here, and we always loved. My wife, being from Topeka, loved Kansas City, and we just fell in love with this place. I knew we would, and. So, yeah, sure. I mean, you put feelers out there, but at the end of the day, and as luck would have it, opportunities continue to grow for me here. I mentioned the O.J. Simpson trial. So I was a lawyer. They put me on the O.J. Simpson coverage. We had no programming as a new Fox affiliate. Back then, there was no Fox Sports. There was no Fox News. It was whatever syndication program you could throw on the air, and then 2 hours of prime a night. So our GM, Ed Piet, said, let's just carry the O.J. trial. Back then, it was only CNN and Court TV carrying it. So for 9 months, I got major exposure as an anchor and analyst And by the way, I had no criminal law experience, but I kind of knew how to study it and look it up. And we brought in local lawyers who some of them became great friends. Kevin Regan was one of our regulars. He's a well-known attorney here. Another attorney that you might know of, a guy by the name of Sylvester James, Sly James,
right.
was one of our early, a young Sly James launching his legal career, was a regular on our panels. And it was so much fun. And that talk about freeform TV. It's not on the prompter. You're following what's happening. We're carrying the trial out of LA. And that one thing led to another. And that, I think, gave them a chance to see me in action and the audience to see me. And I think it gave me opportunities here quicker than had I just stayed on the weekends and grown there. But so opportunities came my way here, and one thing leads to another. And you blink and it's 25 years later, your kids are grown, and it's been a great run. I have no complaints. And a lot of the people I've gotten to know in this town, colleagues here, Phil Witt, Frank Bowl, Mike Thompson, the people I work with now, people like you, the guys I've known in radio and other television stations. It's just a great market, a great cost of living, great friendly people. It's a big, small town, but it's a good news town too. So it's been a great run.
You have a very amiable, easy style on TV. Is it something you had to develop, or it seems to come extremely natural to you?
Oh, maybe a little of both. I think one of the things that radio teaches you, and that's why I'm always grateful for the radio time I had. And I still say it's the best time I've had in the business, because in radio, it's you and a microphone, and you don't know who's out there. You don't know you don't really know in TV either. But the point is, you don't have to worry about how you look, no makeup, no lighting. It's just you. It's a very intimate medium. And so I loved the casual nature of radio. And I think that helped me when I got to TV, got in front of the camera, and even got on the teleprompter as we are in our regular scripted newscasts. It just came more naturally. That radio training, the ad-libbing, and I go back to my high school days, the debate and speech experience of just standing up and talking is something that I found I could do. It was the one I couldn't nail a jumper or throw a pass, but I felt like I could talk, and it paid off. And I think in television, I try to, and I tell young people this, don't try to go on there and be an anchor man. Just be yourself. Just be yourself. And I think, again, the radio training for me was the best thing that ever happened.
Because of the nature of this community and, successes occasionally in the sports realm, coverage expands to have the anchors involved in sports, and you've had that opportunity on many occasions. And as a big sports fan, I know that must be a really important part and fun part of what you get to do when you get to branch out into that area, be it the Chiefs or the Royals when they finally made the World Series and things like that.
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier in our chat here that at one time I wanted to be in sports. I loved the play-by-play, listening to the radio and the sports on TV. As it turned out, my route was news. So the opportunity to cover my childhood baseball team, the Royals. Dad used to load us up in the family roadster, and we'd come up for a weekend series. It was kind of part of our summer vacation. The Chiefs, I was never lucky enough to go to many Chiefs games as a kid, but watched them on TV, listened to them on the radio. And, of course, being at KU and then finally getting a chance, I've covered some Final Fours and the 08 championship. I mean, that's just been the thrill of a lifetime for me. And not just whether they won or fell short. 14, being there with the Royals in San Francisco, I mean, pinch me, man. It's just like this team in the way baseball works and the economics of baseball, I never dreamed we would see this again. And there we were, Game 7, right? And then the next year, 15, to be in New York and Citi Field that Sunday night, they won Game 5. Again, it was just like, I looked at Al Wallace, who I was with and I did a fair amount of traveling with back in those days. And we were both just shaking our heads. He said, "Johnny Ray, can you believe this? Can you believe this?" And I'm like, man, no. And I got a little emotional at one point. I mean, it's just like, damn, I never dreamed this would happen. And here I am on the field interviewing players and coaches and being a part of it. And then, of course, the Chiefs. I mean, when chance to go to Miami last year, again, 50 years in the making. And I remember as a kid when they won the Super Bowl, I guess it was the 69 season, 1970. That was a pretty special week. We worked our tails off, got no sleep at all. There was no partying on South Beach for our crew. But, man, when we walked out of there at 2 a.m., Florida time from Hard Rock Stadium with some confetti in our bag and the experience of a lifetime covering your childhood team win a world championship. Pretty good way to wrap up a week in Miami for sure. I hope we get to do it again, but I can always say I have it. I've been there.
When you mentioned meeting your wife and going through law school together and then getting married and raising two children, television is a busy industry and you work at night, and raising a family is an important thing, and it falls often on your spouse, doesn't it?
It does. My wife was the best mom ever. We made a pact coming out of law school that she would work. She wanted to work, but when she became pregnant with our first, and it timed out perfectly. We had moved down to Wichita, and she was in the process of getting ready to work. And I tease her to this day that she had this planned. She became pregnant with our son, Jack, and she stayed home. And, she sacrificed her career, but her career, the real career she wanted was to be a mom. And she was a hell of a mom. I mean, I was gone a lot. As you know, in this business, you're gone a lot. I worked nights. I missed out on, the after-dinner homework, the evening events. I was available most weekends and did some things then, but when the kids were in sports, I missed out on a lot of their things. So I sort of look back with regret, but man, they had her, and she was a rock for them and still is to this day. And we're all very close, but I know they have a special bond with their mom because in many ways she was a single mom during the week, particularly. And I've always been grateful that was her calling. The kids turned out great. I always give her the credit. And she allowed me to be me and do what I love. While she brought the kids up, especially when they were in school, and they'd be up and gone oftentimes before I was, getting out of bed. When you work nights, you tend to sleep a little bit later. I'm a morning person and I would try to get up, but a lot of times it was just a perfunctory, hey guys, have a great day. And then I wasn't there when they came home from school. So right. I miss out on that. But at the same time, she did a great job. They were in good hands with her. And I've always been grateful for that.
Tell me a little bit about what they're doing now.
I'm very proud of both of them. My son, our oldest, was interested in the military in high school. He went to a military academy night and walked out of there with holding his mom's hand. Mom, I want to do that. And she just looked at him like, really? I think this was his sophomore year. And he said, yeah, I want to be in the Army. He didn't want Air Force or Navy. He wanted to go to West Point. So he had to change his curriculum. He had to pick up a sport. He was like his dad, not real athletic. And he got into wrestling because it was no cut at Blue Valley North High School. And I'll always be grateful for the coach there who gave him a chance. In his senior year, he made varsity and got a letter because West Point, the academies like that varsity letter. And he worked his tail off and managed to get into West Point. So he was our Army officer for 7 years. He's now on the East Coast working for Procter & Gamble. He wrapped up his military career in the reserves. They have two boys, and they live right outside of Baltimore, D.C., and they love it. And it's fun to go visit them. And then our daughter fell in love with a biology course at Blue Valley North and a teacher, and decided she wanted to go into medicine, of all things, and sort of followed in her grandfather's footsteps. She ended up at Creighton Nursing, and then stayed and got her nurse practitioner degree, and now she's a doctor of NP, married a young family practice doctor, and they have a little girl up there expecting their second. So I'm an old grandfather now, and reliving those days, but both kids have done great, and they have wonderful spouses and great kids, and again, just blessed. Again, I attribute a lot of that to my wife, Susie, who brought them up and made sure they knew right from wrong and all those good things and the value of hard work, and they certainly have done that for sure.
You certainly have carried your Jayhawk passion through the years, but not just as a a basketball fan, as so many sports fans of KU are. You're a dedicated football fan of KU, and so there must have been a lot of because there's been a lot of bad football in Kansas since we were around there, John. And but you've always enjoyed the experience of going to the Hill, even as they lost game after game after game.
I really, and I appreciate you bringing that up. First of all, when you come into this market, I was really careful about talking about KU because there's the KU-MU thing, and of course K-State, which I saw more of that out in central Kansas growing up and while I worked in Wichita. But you don't want to alienate anyone, right? But after a while, I realized, hey, everybody knows Larry Moore was a Missouri Tiger guy, and Phil Witt had his Nebraska favorite, and so I thought, what, that's who I am. So I kind of let my guard down on that. And one of the things I've talked about openly is how much I love KU football and going to Lawrence on game day and just the college football experience, right? I mean, it's a full day in a college town, and have made great friends doing that. And for a while there, during the Mangino era, was privy to an Orange Bowl title, and really you kind of peaked there and you thought, okay, this was worth it, man. Now it's paying off. And all my Mizzou and K-State friends were, yeah, okay, we get it now. And then of course we know the rest of the story there, but even so, it doesn't change the game day fun and experience. And I'm heartbroken that the home opener this year will have no fans, because I always looked forward to that. It was like a Christmas Day to me to get back to Lawrence and do the tailgating thing with my crew and go to the games. And we try to go to at least one road game a year. Last year, I happened to pick a good one, Boston College. We were there when they pulled that upset.
Right.
I attended the Orange Bowl, got to see that win as a fan, not working. And so, yeah, I still believe, and I think KU's headed in the right direction in football. I'm excited about the future, and hopefully we can all get back over there soon.
What would you say as far professionally? You've dropped the reporter thing several times, and your main role, because of the fact you're so good at it, has always been as an anchor. What is your favorite thing to do as a television newsman?
I think, well, that's a good question. There's several things. I do love storytelling. I love getting out and working on longer form pieces, which is what we do as anchors. And we have some folks here who sort of focus on those longer form types of pieces, whether they're investigative or profiles or whatever. I love doing that, working with some of the talented photographers we have here. I also enjoy field anchoring, being out live at a big event, whether it's, the big Chiefs Thursday night game that we're carrying, being out at Arrowhead to do the early shows out there, or breaking news. I've covered some tornado aftermath, been out live at various other events around town. I love being out away from the studio. And then right now, one of the things we're doing is our new owners, Nexstar, they're big on digital product. And so now each week I'm involved in a political show that Dave Helling and I put together called 4-Star Politics, which just launched here a couple of months ago. And we interview fellow political types that enjoy analyzing and looking at different things. We interview candidates, and it's just we launched it because of the election year that we're in, and just both state, Missouri and Kansas, have interesting races. Of course, the national scene, so that's fun, And I put my political hat on, and I love politics. I've loved covering it. When I was in Topeka, covered state politics there at the Capitol. And then on Fridays, I shift gears and we do this thing called KC End Zone with the sports guys, which airs on Sunday mornings. And it's kind of our version of for lack of a better term, a pregame show. But we focus on the Chiefs, obviously. And so that's fun. I get to put my sports hat back on and work with Rob and Harold on that. So I just like the variety. I just like doing all sorts of different things. And I've been blessed. They've allowed me to spread my wings and do that kind of thing. The one thing I've had to sacrifice is I have not been able to get out and do stories as much of late, just because we have the political show Wednesday and the Chiefs show on Friday. So that's kind of clipped my wings there, and I'm anxious to hopefully get back out again, maybe after the election, and work on some stories. But I'm having a blast. I mean, I keep thinking at some point you kind of want to slow down, but I love it. I come in the door, I'm busy from start to finish. A lot of times I'm leaving home early to go to a meeting or a shoot or whatever. I wouldn't have it any other way. And I think my wife likes it because it gets me out of the house and keeps me out of her. This working from home, I know some of my cohorts, Chris Ketz is a good buddy of mine. He was working from home for a while. I am so glad we didn't have to do that. I like coming in. We've social distanced here. We've got a lot of people remote. And so working out of the studio, I'm so grateful that I've been able to do that.
Well, you don't sound in any way like you're ready to slow down, but what do you see the next few years holding for John Holt?
That's a great question. I really, truly, and I say this, I have no idea. I mean, I like keeping busy, and I've found new ways to do that and new challenges, and I think that's what's kept me so in tune and so passionate about what I do. Is this political show a year ago wasn't even on my radar, and when we were sold, and our new company loves politics, and they love having these digital only shows, that fell in my lap. So I've had a chance to do that, and then the sports side of it, getting to do the Chiefs show. Who knows what over the next few years will bring. And I tell people say when Phil Witt chose to retire, and Al Wallace, my good friend, decided to take early retirement, he was ready. He truly was, and now he's teaching and writing and having a great time. I don't see it on the radar. Now, maybe I'll wake up one morning and go, you know what, I want to spend more time with the grandkids, or I want to be able to do some different things. Maybe, but boy, I don't see it right now. And I'm open to anything down the road with this company and with this TV station. I'm very loyal. I love what I'm doing, and I love this town. And I'm excited. I'm refreshed, I guess, by the new opportunities they've given me.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Kling Scale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.